Danny Cole had been stuck on Vexor 7 for 23 days. He counted every single one of them because each day cost him something. Food was expensive. Water was expensive. Even breathing the recycled air on this station cost credits if you stayed in certain areas. And Danny was running out of credits fast. His ship, the Dusty Wanderer, sat in docking bay 47 like a dead animal. The engine had failed 2 jumps away from Earth space, and he had limped into this station on backup power alone. The repair costs were more than he had. The parts were rare. The mechanics were thieves. And nobody on Vexor 7 cared about a broke human cargo hauler with no connections and no friends. Danny walked through the lower levels of the station that morning, looking for work. Any work. He had tried the loading docks, but the Creth workers did not want humans near their cargo. He had tried the food stalls, but they only hired their own species. He had tried the repair shops, but they laughed at him when he offered to work for parts. Instead of credits, the lower levels of Vexor 7 were dark and dirty. The lights flickered. The walls were stained with substances Danny did not want to think about. The air smelled like burning metal and something rotten. This was where the station dumped everything it did not want the upper levels to see. This was where the criminals worked. This was where the slavers sold their cargo. Danny knew about the slave markets. Everyone who traveled through this sector knew about them. The Galactic Council had laws against slavery, but the council was far away, and their laws meant nothing out here. On stations like Vexor 7, people were bought and sold like engine parts. It was ugly. It was wrong. But it was not his problem. He had his own troubles to worry about. He kept his head down and walked fast. He did not want to see what was happening on the platforms. He did not want to hear the auctioneers calling out prices for living beings. He just wanted to find a job, fix his ship, and get out of this place. But then he heard the laughter. It was not happy laughter. It was cruel. It was the sound of a crowd enjoying someone else's pain. Danny stopped walking. He told himself to keep moving. He told himself that whatever was happening there was none of his business. He told himself that he could not afford to care. He turned and looked anyway. A crowd of maybe 50 aliens had gathered around a raised platform near the center of the market. Most of them were Creth, the lizard-like species that ran most of the illegal trade in this sector. Their scales were green and brown, and they had too many teeth in their wide mouths. Mixed in with them were Torvians, vague and brutal creatures with thick hides and small eyes. There were others too, species Danny did not recognize, all of them watching the platform with hungry expressions. On the platform stood a female alien. Danny had never seen her species before. Her skin was silver blue, like metal mixed with ice. She had 4 eyes, 2 large ones in the normal position and 2 smaller ones above them. Her hair was white and cut short, and her body was covered in what looked like natural armor plating along her arms and shoulders. She was tall, almost as tall as Danny, and she stood straight despite the heavy chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles. She was also covered in wounds, cuts on her face, bruises on her arms, dried blood on her torn clothing. Someone had beaten her badly and recently, but her eyes were not beaten. Her 4 eyes burned with fury. She looked at the crowd like she wanted to kill every single one of them. And from the way the Creth handlers kept their distance from her, Danny guessed that she had already tried. The auctioneer was a fat Creth with golden rings pierced through his face. He walked around the female, keeping well out of her reach, and spoke to the crowd in the common trade language. "Here we have a Zolari female," he announced. "Captured 3 months ago from a transport ship. Young and strong. Good for labor. Good for other things too, if you like the exotic type." The crowd laughed at this, and Danny felt his stomach turn. The auctioneer continued. "But I must be honest with you, my friends. This one is trouble. She has bitten 3 of my handlers. She broke the arm of another. And 2 days ago, she killed one of my guards with her bare hands. He showed his teeth in what passed for a smile among his kind. She is wild, untamed, dangerous. The crowd murmured. Some of them looked more interested now. Others started to back away. Because of this, the auctioneer said, I am offering her at a special price. 1 credit. Just 1 single credit, and she's yours. Take her, break her, train her, kill her. I do not care. I just want her off my platform before she costs me any more money. 1 credit. Danny had 17 credits in his pocket. 17 credits that he needed for food. 17 credits that he was saving for ship parts. 17 credits that meant the difference between survival and death. 1 credit was nothing. 1 credit was everything. The Zalari female turned her head and looked directly at Danny. For a moment, their eyes met. He saw pain in those 4 alien eyes. He saw rage. But underneath all of that, he saw something else. He saw someone who had given up hope. Someone who expected nothing from the universe except more suffering. Danny knew that look. He had seen it in the mirror during the worst times of his life. He had seen it on the faces of refugees during the border wars. He had seen it on the faces of prisoners in detention camps. It was the look of someone who had been broken by a cruel world and was waiting to be thrown away. The auctioneer called out again. 1 credit. Who will give me 1 credit for this wild animal? Nobody moved. The crowd was interested in watching, but nobody wanted to actually buy her. She was too dangerous. Too much trouble. It was easier to let her be someone else's problem. Danny felt his feet moving before his brain caught up. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring the looks from the Kreth and Torvians around him. His heart was beating fast. His hands were shaking. Every logical part of his brain was screaming at him to stop, to turn around, to walk away and forget what he had seen. But there was another part of Danny Cole, a part that his father had given him before he died. A part that believed some things were more important than survival. A part that refused to look away from suffering when he had the power to do something about it. He reached the front of the crowd and looked up at the platform. The auctioneer stared down at him with surprise. Human, the Kreth said. What do you want? Danny reached into his pocket and pulled out a single credit chip. His hand was steady now. His voice was calm. I want to make a purchase, he said. The crowd went silent. Even the Zalari female stopped struggling against her chains and stared at him. The auctioneer laughed nervously. You want to buy her? You understand what you are getting. She will kill you in your sleep. She will tear out your throat the moment you turn your back. Danny looked at the female. She was watching him with all 4 of her eyes, trying to understand what he was doing. He could see the question in her gaze. Why would anyone want to buy a broken, dangerous slave for 1 credit? He did not have a good answer. He did not have a plan. He just knew that he could not walk away. 1 credit, Danny said, and he placed the chip on the edge of the platform. That is your price. I am paying it. The auctioneer looked at the credit chip like it was a trap. Then he looked at Danny like he was insane. Then he shrugged his scaled shoulders and picked up the chip. Sold, he said. The wild Zalari belongs to the human. May the void have mercy on your soul. The crowd began to whisper. The human had bought the killer slave. The human had just wasted his money on a dead-end purchase. The human was either brave or stupid, and most of them were betting on stupid. Danny ignored them all. He climbed up onto the platform and walked toward the Zalari female. The Kreth handlers backed away quickly, happy to let someone else deal with her. Up close, she was even more impressive. Her silver blue skin seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the market. The armor, plating on her arms, looked natural, like it had grown from her body. Her 4 eyes tracked his every movement, watching him like a predator watches prey. "Do you understand me?" Danny asked quietly. She did not answer. She just stared at him with those burning eyes. "My name is Danny," he said. "I am not going to hurt you. I am going to get you off this platform. After that, we can figure out what comes next." Still no answer. But something shifted in her expression. The rage was still there, but now there was confusion mixed in with it. She did not understand him. She did not understand why he was doing this. That was okay. Danny was not sure he understood it either. He reached for the chains that held her wrists. And that was when the real trouble began. Danny had just reached for the chains when a massive hand grabbed his shoulder and spun him around. He found himself face to face with a Torvian, one of the biggest he had ever seen. The creature stood nearly 7 feet tall, with thick gray hide covered in old battle scars. His eyes were small and dark, set deep in a skull that looked like it was made for violence. He wore expensive clothing, the kind that successful criminals wore to show off their wealth. "Human," the Torvian growled. His voice was like stones grinding together. "You are making a mistake." Danny felt the fear rise up in his chest, but he pushed it down. He had learned a long time ago that showing fear to predators only made them more dangerous. "I paid for her," Danny said. "She belongs to me now." The Torvian smiled, showing rows of yellow teeth. "I am Graxus. Perhaps you have heard of me." Danny had not heard of him, but from the way the crowd had suddenly backed away, he guessed that Graxus was someone important, someone dangerous, someone who was used to getting what he wanted. "I want the Zalari," Graxus said. "I will give you 50 credits for her. Right now. Easy profit. 50 credits. That was almost 3 times what Danny had to his name. 50 credits would buy him food for weeks. 50 credits might even be enough for some of the parts he needed for his ship. It was a good offer. A smart offer. The kind of offer that only a fool would refuse. Danny looked at the chains in his hands. Then he looked at the Zalari female. She was watching the exchange with those 4 burning eyes. She understood what was happening. She knew that she was about to be sold again, passed from one owner to another like cargo. Something in her expression had changed. The rage was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Resignation. She expected Danny to take the money. She expected him to be just like everyone else. She expected nothing from him because the universe had taught her that expecting nothing was the only way to survive. Danny thought about his father. The old man had been a freight hauler too, running cargo between Earth and the outer colonies. He had died 15 years ago, killed by pirates who wanted his ship. But before he died, he had taught Danny something important. Some things are not for sale, his father had said. Some things have no price. And when you meet those things, you hold on to them. Because if you sell them, you lose a part of yourself that you can never get back. Danny looked at Graxus. "No," he said. The Torvian blinked. For a moment, he seemed confused, like he had not heard correctly. "No?" Graxus repeated. "No," Danny said again. "She is not for sale." The crowd went very quiet. Danny could feel dozens of eyes on him. He could feel the weight of their attention pressing down on him like a physical force. He knew what they were thinking. They were thinking that the human had lost his mind. They were thinking that he was about to get himself killed. Graxus leaned closer. His breath smelled like rotting meat. 100 credits, he said. Final offer. 100 credits. That was more money than Danny had seen in months. 100 credits would fix his ship. 100 credits would get him off this station and back to Earthspace. 100 credits was the answer to all of his problems. Danny did not move. I said no. Something changed in Graxus's eyes. The false friendliness disappeared. What was left was cold and hard and dangerous. "You do not understand your situation, human," Graxus said quietly. "I am not asking. I am telling. Give me the Zalari, take the credits, and walk away. That is how you survive this." Danny felt his heart pounding in his chest. His mouth was dry. His hands were shaking slightly. Every survival instinct he had was screaming at him to give up, to take the money, to live another day. But there was something else inside him. Something that refused to bend. Something that his father had planted deep in his soul, a seed that had grown over the years into something strong. "I hear you," Danny said. "But my answer is still no." Graxus stared at him for a long moment. The silence stretched out. Nobody in the crowd moved. Nobody breathed. Then Graxus laughed. It was not a friendly sound. It was the laugh of a predator who had found something amusing before a kill. "You are brave, human. Or stupid. I cannot decide which." He took a step back and spread his arms. "Very well. Keep your wild Zalari. Keep your 1 credit purchase. But remember this moment. Remember that I offered you a way out, and you refused." He turned and began to walk away. Danny let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. But Graxus stopped after a few steps and looked back over his shoulder. "I am patient," he said, "and I always get what I want, one way or another." Then he disappeared into the crowd. And Danny was left standing on the platform with a Zalari, female in chains and 16 credits to his name. The auctioneer hurried forward with a small device. "You need to register the purchase," he said quickly. "Standard procedure. Put your hand here." Danny pressed his palm against the device. It scanned his biometrics and beeped. "Done," the auctioneer said. "She is yours now, legally and officially. Whatever happens next is not my problem." He looked at the Zalari female with something like fear in his eyes. "Good luck, human. You will need it." The Kreth handlers had already scattered. The crowd was breaking up. Nobody wanted to be near Danny and his dangerous purchase. In less than a minute, he found himself alone on the platform with the Zalari female. She was still watching him. Still silent. Still waiting to see what he would do next. Danny took a deep breath and knelt down in front of her. He moved slowly, keeping his hands visible, trying not to seem threatening. "I am going to take off your chains," he said. "I am not going to hurt you. I am not going to sell you. I am not going to use you for anything. Do you understand?" She did not answer, but she did not attack him either. Danny took that as a good sign. He examined the chains. They were heavy iron, the old-fashioned kind that relied on physical locks instead of electronic ones. The locks looked complicated, but Danny had spent years working with cargo containers and security systems. He knew locks. He pulled out a small tool from his pocket. It was something he always carried, a multifunction device that could pick most simple locks. His father had given it to him when he was 12 years old. "This might take a minute," Danny said as he worked on the first lock. "The mechanism is rusted. Nobody has taken care of these chains." The Zalari female watched his hands move. She was completely still, like a statue made of silver and ice. But Danny could see the tension in her body. She was ready to fight the moment she was free. The first lock clicked open. The chain around her left wrist fell away. She moved so fast that Danny barely saw it. One moment she was standing still. The next moment her free hand was around his throat, lifting him off the ground. Her grip was incredibly strong. Danny could feel her fingers pressing against his windpipe, cutting off his air. He grabbed at her arm, but it was like trying to move a steel bar. Black spots began to appear at the edges of his vision. "Why?" she demanded. Her voice was harsh and rough, like she had not used it in a long time. "Why did you buy me? What do you want?" Danny could not speak. He could barely breathe. He looked into her 4 eyes and saw rage and pain and confusion. She had been hurt so many times that she could not understand kindness. She could not believe that someone would help her without wanting something in return. He did the only thing he could think of. He stopped struggling. He let his hands fall to his sides. He stopped fighting and just looked at her. Her grip loosened slightly. Not enough to let him go, but enough to let him breathe. "Nothing," Danny managed to say. "I want nothing. Everyone wants something," she said. "Maybe," Danny agreed. "But not from you. Not like this." She stared at him for a long moment. Her 4 eyes searched his face, looking for lies, looking for hidden motives. Danny had no idea what she saw there. He only knew that he was telling the truth. Finally, she let him go. Danny fell to his knees, gasping for air. His throat burned. He was probably going to have bruises for weeks, but he was alive. And she had not killed him. "You are strange," she said. "You are weak. You have no money. You have no power. And yet you stand in front of Graxus and refuse him. You buy a slave who has killed before and will kill again. You free her knowing she might kill you. Why?" Danny rubbed his throat and looked up at her. Because it was the right thing to do. She made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a curse. Right and wrong are inventions of the weak. The strong take what they want. The weak suffer. That is the truth of the universe. "Maybe," Danny said, "but I do not have to like it. And I do not have to be part of it." He pulled out his tool again and held it up. "I still need to get the other chains off. Will you let me do that?" She looked at the chains still wrapped around her right wrist and her ankles. Then she looked at Danny. Then she nodded, just once. Danny got back to his feet and went to work on the remaining locks. His hands were steady now. The fear had passed, replaced by something else. Something that felt almost like hope. He did not know what was going to happen next. He did not know if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He did not know if Graxus would come after him or if the Zilari female would disappear the moment she was free. But he knew one thing. He had done the right thing. And whatever came next, nobody could take that away from him. The second lock clicked open. Then the third. Then the fourth. The chains fell to the platform. Danny led the Zilari female through the winding corridors of the lower levels. He walked fast, checking corners and watching shadows. Graxus had let them go for now, but Danny did not believe that was the end of it. Creatures like Graxus did not accept defeat. They waited and planned and struck when their targets felt safe. The Zilari female walked behind him in silence. She moved like a hunter, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. Despite her wounds and her time in chains, she was alert and ready. Danny got the feeling that if anyone attacked them, she would be the one doing the fighting. "What is your name?" Danny asked without turning around. She did not answer for a long moment. Then she said, Vera Kelshen. "I am Danny Cole, but I told you that already." "Yes, you did." They walked in silence for a while longer. Danny tried to remember the route back to his docking bay. The lower levels of Vector 7 were like a maze, and the signs were in languages he could not read. "Where are you taking me?" Vera asked. "To my ship. It does not work right now, but at least it is a safe place to rest. Better than sleeping in the corridors. Your ship does not work? The engine is broken. I cannot afford the repairs." Vera made that sound again, the one that might have been a laugh. "So you spent your last credit on me instead of saving it for your ship. You truly are a fool." "Probably," Danny admitted. "But being a fool is not always a bad thing." They turned a corner and came face to face with 3 Krath blocking the corridor. They were young and rough-looking, with cheap weapons in their hands. Street criminals. thieves who preyed on travelers in the lower levels. Human, the leader said. He was missing several teeth, and his scales were covered in old scars. You are carrying something valuable. We want it. Danny stopped walking. He did not have a weapon. He did not have credits to offer. He did not have anything except his wits and the dangerous alien standing behind him. I have nothing valuable, Danny said. Check my pockets. You will find 16 credits. That is all I have. The Kreth leader grinned. Not talking about credits, human. We want the Zolari. She's worth a lot of money. Graxis is offering a reward for anyone who brings her to him. Danny felt his blood go cold. So Graxis had not given up. He had just changed his approach. Instead of taking Vera himself, he was letting the criminals of the lower levels do his work for him. She is not for sale, Danny said. And she is not a prize to be collected. The Kreth laughed. She is whatever we say she is. Now step aside, human. This does not have to be bloody. Danny did not move. He knew he should. He knew that fighting 3-armed Kreth was suicide. He knew that the smart thing to do was to step aside and let them take Vera. He could not protect her. He could not fight for her. He was just one human with no weapons and no backup. But he did not step aside. No, he said. The Kreth leader stopped laughing. No? You are choosing to die for an alien you just met? Danny thought about it for a moment. Then he nodded. Yes, I guess I am. Behind him, Vera spoke. Move, human. This is not your fight. It became my fight when I bought you, Danny said without turning around. I am not very good at fighting, but I am good at not running away. The Kreth leader sighed. Stupid human. Kill him first. Then take the female. The 3 Kreth moved forward. Danny raised his fists, knowing it was hopeless. He had been in fights before, but never against armed aliens. Never against 3 opponents at once. This was going to hurt. But before the Kreth could reach him, Vera moved. She was impossibly fast. One moment she was standing behind Danny. The next moment she was between him and the attackers. Her hand shot out and grabbed the first Kreth by the throat. She lifted him off the ground and threw him into the second Kreth. Both of them crashed into the wall and did not get up. The third Kreth, the leader, swung his weapon at her head. Vera ducked under the blow and struck him in the chest with her palm. There was a cracking sound, and the Kreth flew backward, landing in a heap 10 feet away. The whole fight had taken less than 5 seconds. Danny stared at Vera with his mouth open. He had known she was dangerous. The auctioneer had told him that she had killed a guard with her bare hands. But knowing something and seeing it were very different things. You should have let them take me, Vera said. She was not even breathing hard. Now Graxis will know you are protecting me. He will send more people. Better people. Eventually, he will come himself. I could not let them take you, Danny said. Why not? You owe me nothing. I am nothing to you. Danny looked at her. She was covered in silver blue blood from the fight, and her 4 eyes were blazing with something he could not identify. Confusion, maybe. Or anger. Or something else entirely. When I was young, Danny said, my father told me a story. He said that long ago, on Earth, there was a group of people who believed in something called honor. They believed that some things were worth fighting for, even if you could not win. They believed that standing your ground was more important than surviving. That is foolish, Vera said. Dead heroes cannot help anyone. Maybe, Danny agreed. But living cowards cannot either. My father always said that the moment you start running, you never stop. You run from one thing, then another, and eventually, you run from everything. You forget how to stand still. You forget how to face what scares you. He gestured at the unconscious Kreth on the floor. I was not going to beat them. I knew that. But I was not going to run either. Because if I ran from this, I would run from the next thing. And the thing after that. And someday, I would look in the mirror and not recognize the person looking back. Vera was quiet for a long moment. Her 4 eyes studied him like she was seeing him for the first time. My people believed in honor once, she finally said. We were warriors. We fought with rules and codes. We believed the universe would reward our courage. Her voice became bitter. Then the Dominion came. They did not care about honor. They did not follow rules. They killed our warriors, enslaved our people, and burned our world. Our honor meant nothing. I am sorry, Danny said. That is terrible. It is the truth. Honor is a lie that the strong tell the weak to keep them obedient. The only thing that matters is power. The strong survive. The weak die. That is the law of the galaxy. Danny shook his head. I do not believe that. Then you are a fool. Maybe, Danny said for the 3rd time. But I am a fool who is still standing. And you are standing next to me. So maybe being a fool is not the worst thing in the universe. Vera looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned and started walking down the corridor. Your ship, she said. Take me there. We need to move before more of them come. Danny followed her. His heart was still pounding from the fight that had almost happened. His hands were shaking from the adrenaline. But there was something else too. Something that felt almost like pride. He had not run. He had stood his ground. And somehow, he was still alive. They walked through more corridors, past closed doors and dark alcoves. Occasionally, they saw other beings, criminals and refugees and lost souls, but nobody bothered them. Word had already spread. The human and the Zalari had beaten 3 Kreth. They were not easy targets. Finally, they reached Docking Bay 47. Danny pressed his hand against the access panel, and the door slid open. The Dusty Wanderer sat in the middle of the bay, a small cargo ship that had seen better days. Her hull was dented and scratched. Her paint was faded. One of her landing struts was slightly bent. She looked like something that should have been scrapped years ago, but to Danny, she was home. This is your ship? Vera asked. Her voice was not exactly impressed. She is not much to look at, Danny admitted. But she has gotten me across the galaxy more times than I can count. When she works anyway. He led Vera up the loading ramp and into the main cargo hold. The inside of the ship was cramped but clean. Danny was not a rich man, but he believed in taking care of what he had. You can sleep in the passenger cabin, Danny said. It is not big, but it has a bed and a door that locks. I will stay in the cockpit. Vera looked around the ship with those 4 alien eyes. Danny wondered what she was thinking. She had been a warrior once, a fighter from a proud race. Now she was standing in a broken cargo ship with a broke human who had nothing to offer her. Why do you trust me? She asked suddenly. Danny blinked. What? You know what I am. You know what I have done. You know I could kill you right now and take the ship. Why do you trust me enough to sleep near me? Danny thought about it. It was a good question. A smart question. The truth was that he did not have a good answer. I guess I do not trust you, he said finally. Not really. I do not know you well enough to trust you. But I believe in giving people a chance to prove themselves. You could have run when the Kreth attacked. You could have let them kill me and escaped in the confusion. But you did not. You fought for me. That means something. Vera was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned and walked toward the passenger cabin. Get some rest, human, she said without looking back. Tomorrow we need to find a way off this station. Because Graxus will not stop coming. And next time, I may not be enough to protect you. The door closed behind her, and Danny was left alone in the cargo hold. He stood there for a while, thinking about everything that had happened. 24 hours ago, he had been a broke cargo hauler with a broken ship and no hope. Now Danny woke up to the sound of footsteps in the cargo hold. He was on his feet instantly, his heart pounding, reaching for a weapon he did not have. Then he remembered where he was and who else was on his ship. Vera stood in the doorway of the cockpit. The station lights coming through the viewport painted her silver blue skin in strange patterns. She looked different than she had before, cleaner. She had used the ship's shower, and she had found some of Danny's spare clothes. The human clothes did not fit her well, but she wore them anyway. "You sleep heavily," she said. "I could have killed you a dozen times." "Good morning to you too," Danny said. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the time display on the console. He had been asleep for 6 hours. It felt like 6 minutes. Vera walked into the cockpit and sat down in the co-pilot seat. She moved carefully, like she was not sure if she was allowed to be there. Danny realized that she had probably not been treated like a person in a very long time. "Sit wherever you want," he said. "You are not a prisoner here." She looked at him with those 4 eyes. What am I then? It was a good question. Danny was not sure of the answer. A guest, I suppose. A traveler. Someone who needs a place to stay for a while. "I am a burden," Vera said flatly. "I bring danger to you. Graxus wants me, and anyone who helps me becomes his enemy. You should have left me on that platform." "Probably," Danny agreed. "But I did not. And I am not going to start regretting it now." He got up and walked to the small food storage unit in the corner of the cockpit. It was not really a kitchen, just a box with some basic supplies. He pulled out 2 ration bars and tossed one to Vara. She caught it without looking and examined it carefully. "What is this?" "Breakfast. It tastes terrible, but it has all the nutrients a human needs to survive. I do not know if it works for Zilari, but it is all I have." Vera took a small bite. Her face showed no reaction. Danny took that as a good sign. They ate in silence for a while. Outside the viewport, the docking bay was quiet. No sign of Graxus or his hunters. But Danny knew that would not last. "Can I ask you something?" Danny said. Vera nodded slightly. "How did you end up in chains? You are obviously a skilled fighter. How did they capture you?" Vera was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was distant, like she was talking about something that had happened to someone else. "I was a soldier," she said. "A commander, actually. I led a unit of warriors in the resistance against the Dominion. After they conquered our world, some of us refused to surrender. We fought from the shadows. We struck at their supply lines. We rescued prisoners. We did everything we could to make them pay for what they had done." She paused and looked out the viewport at the dark walls of the docking bay. 3 months ago, my unit attacked a Dominion transport ship. We thought it was carrying weapons. We were wrong. It was a trap. They knew we were coming. They were waiting for us." Her hands clenched into fists. "They killed everyone. My entire unit. 27 warriors. They died in minutes. But not you," Danny said quietly. "No, not me. The Dominion commander wanted a trophy, a famous resistance leader to display as proof of his victory. He beat me. He tortured me. He broke my weapons and burned my armor. And then he sold me to the Kreth like I was nothing but cargo." Danny felt his stomach turn. He had known that the galaxy was cruel, but hearing it described so plainly was still hard. "I am sorry," he said. "That is horrible. Do not be sorry. It is not your fault. And it is not over." Her 4 eyes fixed on Danny with burning intensity. "Someday I will find that Dominion commander, and I will kill him. I will kill everyone who serves him. I will tear his empire apart piece by piece until there is nothing left. That is my purpose now. That is why I survive. Danny nodded slowly. He understood revenge. He understood anger. He had felt both when the pirates killed his father. But he had also learned that anger alone was not enough to build a life on. What about after? He asked. Vera frowned. After what? After you get your revenge, what then? What do you do when everyone who hurt you is dead? She stared at him like he had asked her to explain the color of a sound. I do not understand the question. You cannot live on revenge forever, Danny said. At some point, you have to find something else. Something to live for instead of something to kill for. That is easy for you to say. You are human. Your people have not been conquered. Your family has not been murdered. You do not know what it feels like to lose everything. Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he said, My father was killed by pirates when I was 19 years old. They boarded his ship, took his cargo, and shot him in the head. I was not there. I was on another station, waiting for him to come home. He never came. Vera's eyes widened slightly. You did not tell me this. You did not ask. But I understand loss. I understand the desire for revenge. I spent 2 years hunting those pirates. I tracked them across 3 sectors. I found the one who pulled the trigger, and I stood in front of him with a gun in my hand. Did you kill him? Danny shook his head. No, I looked at him, and I realized something. He was just a scared creature trying to survive in a cruel galaxy. He had made terrible choices, but killing him was not going to bring my father back. It was not going to make me feel better. It was just going to add more death to a universe that already had too much. Vera's expression hardened. That is weakness. Your father deserved justice. Maybe, but justice and revenge are not the same thing. My father was a good man. He believed in helping people, in making the universe a little bit better than he found it. If I had killed that pirate, I would have become the opposite of everything my father stood for. I would have let his death turn me into a monster. So you let his killer live? You let him walk free? I turned him in to the authorities. He's in a prison now, on a world where he will never hurt anyone again. That is justice. That is what my father would have wanted. Vera was silent for a long time. Her 4 eyes stared at Danny like she was trying to solve a puzzle that made no sense. You are a strange human, she finally said. So people keep telling me. She stood up and walked to the viewport. Her reflection was visible in the dark glass, a silver-blue ghost standing in a human ship. I do not know if I can be like you, she said. I have too much anger inside me, too much pain. The only thing that keeps me moving is the thought of revenge. If I give that up, I have nothing left. Danny got up and stood beside her. He did not touch her. He did not try to comfort her. He just stood there, looking out at the same dark walls. Maybe that is true right now, he said. But people change. Feelings change. The anger you feel today might not be the anger you feel tomorrow. And someday you might find something else to live for. Something better. Like what? Danny shrugged. I do not know. That is something you have to figure out for yourself. But I can tell you that it is possible. I was full of anger once. I wanted nothing but revenge. And then I found something else. I found my ship. One found the stars. I found the feeling of flying through the void, free from everything that hurt me. Vera looked at him. You think I should fly a cargo ship? Danny laughed. It felt strange to laugh after everything that had happened, but he could not help it. No, I think you should find what makes you feel alive. It might be fighting. It might be exploring. It might be something you have never tried before. But whatever it is, it should be bigger than revenge. It should be something that makes you want to wake up in the morning instead of just something that makes you want to kill. Vera did not respond. She just looked out the viewport at the station lights. After a while, Danny walked back to the pilot's seat and started running diagnostics on the ship's systems. The engine was still broken. The fuel tanks were almost empty. They had no money and no plan, but they were alive. And sometimes that was enough. "Human," Vera said without turning around. "Yes? If I help you fix your ship, will you take me away from here? Will you fly me to wherever I need to go?" Danny thought about it. It was a fair offer. She was strong and skilled, and he could use the help with repairs. Getting off this station was the most important thing right now. "Deal," he said. "You help me fix the Dusty Wanderer, and I will take you anywhere you want to go." Vera turned and looked at him. For the first time, there was something in her eyes that was not anger or pain or suspicion. It was small and fragile, barely visible dot was hope. "Then we should start working," she said. "Graxus will not wait forever." Danny smiled and nodded. "Follow me. The engine room is this way." They walked out of the cockpit together, the human and the Zolari, heading toward the heart of the broken ship. Outside, the station was waking up. Somewhere in those dark corridors, Graxus was planning his next move. But in here, in this small ship, something had changed. A connection had been made. A partnership had been formed, and for the first time since he had arrived on Vexor 7, Danny Cole felt like he might actually have a chance. 3 days passed on Vexor 7. 3 days of work and worry. 3 days of Danny and Vera trying to fix the Dusty Wanderer with no money and no parts. Danny had taught Vera everything he knew about human engines. She was a fast learner, faster than anyone he had ever met. Her 4 eyes could spot problems that Danny's 2 eyes missed. Her strong hands could turn bolts that Danny could not move. Together, they made progress that should have been impossible. But progress was not enough. The main power coupling was destroyed. Without a new one, the engine would never work. And a new power coupling cost more credits than Danny had ever owned. On the morning of the 4th day, Danny woke up to an empty ship. He searched every room. He called Vera's name. He checked the cargo hold and the engine room and the passenger cabin. She was gone. Danny felt something cold settle in his stomach. She had left. After everything they had been through, she had decided to leave. He could not blame her. He had nothing to offer. A broken ship and empty pockets were not much of a future. He sat down in the pilot's seat and stared at the controls. Outside the viewport, the docking bay was quiet. The station lights flickered, as they always did. Everything looked the same as it had yesterday, but everything had changed. Danny had spent so long alone that he had forgotten what it felt like to have someone else around. The past 3 days had reminded him. Working with Vera, talking with her, learning about her world and her people. It had felt good. It had felt right. And now she was gone. He sat there for a long time, not moving, not thinking, just existing. The ship hummed quietly around him, the sound of broken systems trying to work. Then he heard footsteps on the loading ramp. Danny jumped to his feet and ran to the cargo hold. Vera walked up the ramp, carrying a large metal case in her arms. Her silver blue skin was splattered with something dark, and there was a cut on her cheek that had not been there before. "What happened?" Danny demanded. "Where did you go? Are you hurt?" Vera set the case down on the cargo hold floor. She looked tired but satisfied, like a hunter returning from a successful kill. "I went shopping," she said. Danny stared at her. "Shopping? You left in the middle of the night to go shopping?" "Yes." She opened the case. Inside was a brand new power coupling, exactly the model they needed for the engine. Next to it were fuel cells, enough to fill the ship's tanks twice over. And underneath, those were credit chips. Dozens of them. Danny's mouth fell open. "How? Where did you get all this?" Vera smiled. It was the first time Danny had seen her smile. It changed her face completely, making her look younger and almost gentle. Graxus had many things in his quarters, she said. He also had very poor security. I have been watching his movements for 2 days, learning his patterns. Last night, he went to a meeting with the station council. His quarters were empty. Danny could not believe what he was hearing. You robbed Graxus? The same Graxus who wants to kill us. You broke into his home and took his things? He took my freedom. He tried to buy me like property. He sent hunters after us. I simply returned the favor. Vera picked up the power coupling and held it out to Danny. This is for your ship. You spent your last credit on me. Now I am paying you back. Danny took the coupling. It was heavy in his hands, solid and real. 3 days ago, this had seemed impossible. Now it was sitting in his cargo hold. Vera, he said slowly, Graxus is going to know it was you. He's going to come after us with everything he has. Yes, Vera agreed. He will. That is why we need to leave quickly. I suggest we start with the engine. She turned and walked toward the engine room, leaving Danny standing in the cargo hold with the power coupling in his hands and 1,000 questions in his head. He stood there for a moment, trying to process what was happening. Then he laughed. It started small, just a chuckle, but it grew until he was laughing so hard that tears ran down his face. The Zilari warrior had robbed a crime lord to pay for his ship. Repairs. The woman he had bought for 1 credit had just given him enough money to fly across the galaxy. The universe was insane, and Danny loved it. He followed Vera to the engine room, still carrying the coupling. She was already pulling out the old damaged part, working with quick and efficient movements. You do not have to do this, Danny said. You do not owe me anything. Vera did not look up from her work. You helped me when I had nothing to offer. You stood in front of Graxus and refused to sell me. You freed me when you could have used me. That is a debt. My people take debts seriously. I did not do it to create a debt. I did it because it was right. I know. Now she looked up, her 4 eyes meeting his. That is why the debt is even greater. You asked for nothing. You expected nothing. And yet, you gave me everything. My freedom, my dignity, a chance to be something other than a slave. She paused. No one has ever done that for me. No one has ever treated me like a person instead of a weapon or a prize. Danny did not know what to say. He just stood there, holding the power coupling, looking at the alien woman who would somehow become his partner. Let us fix your ship, Vera said. We can talk about feelings later, when we are not about to be hunted by an angry Torvian. Danny nodded and got to work. It took 4 hours to install the new coupling and fill the fuel tanks. It took another hour to run diagnostics and make sure everything was working. By the time they were done, Danny's hands were black with engine grease and Vera's. Clothes were ruined, but the dusty wanderer hummed with power for the first time in almost a month. Danny sat in the pilot seat and brought up the navigation system. The stars spread out before him on the display. Thousands of destinations, millions of possibilities. Where do you want to go? He asked Vera, who had taken her usual place in the co-pilot seat. She was quiet for a moment. I do not know. For the past 3 months, my only goal was to survive. I never thought about what comes after. Well, we have options. I know some systems in human space where we could find work. Cargo runs, passenger transport, that kind of thing. Not exciting, but it pays well. Vera considered this. And then what? Then, we keep going. We fly from place to place, taking jobs, seeing the galaxy. Maybe we find something worth fighting for. Maybe we just enjoy being free. She looked at him with those 4 strange eyes. You would do that? Share your ship with me? Let me travel with you. You saved my life. You fixed my ship. You robbed a crime lord for me." Danny grinned. "I think we make a pretty good team." Vera was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded just once. "All right," she said. "Let us see the galaxy together." Danny started the launch sequence. The ship shuddered as the engines came online, and the docking clamps released with a heavy clunk. Slowly, the Dusty Wanderer rose from the floor of docking bay 40-7. Through the viewport, Danny could see the station falling away. The dark corridors where he had almost died. The slave market where he had bought a Zilari warrior for 1 credit. The home of Graxus, who would soon discover that he had been robbed. He did not feel sorry for any of it. He felt free. "Human," Vera said as they cleared the station and entered open space. "Yes? I never thanked you. For buying me. For freeing me. For standing your ground when everyone else would have run away." Danny adjusted the heading and plotted a course for the nearest safe system. "You do not need to thank me. I know. But I want to." She paused. "My people have a tradition. When someone saves your life, you give them a piece of your story. You tell them something true, something important, something that matters. All right? What is your true thing?" Vera looked out at the stars spraying before them, endless points of light in the darkness. "When you bought me, I was ready to die. I had given up hope. I thought the universe was nothing but cruelty and pain, and I was waiting for it to finally end." She turned to look at Danny. "You showed me that I was wrong. You showed me that there is still kindness in the galaxy. Still honor. Still people who do the right thing, not because it benefits them, but because it is right." Danny did not know how to respond. He just sat there, watching the stars, feeling the hum of the engine beneath his feet. "I do not know what comes next," Vera continued. "I do not know if I can let go of my anger. I do not know if I can become the person you seem to think I can be. But I am willing to try. And that is because of you." The Dusty Wanderer sailed through the void, leaving Vexor 7 behind. Ahead was the unknown. Ahead was the galaxy, vast and cold and full of dangers, but also full of possibilities. Danny Cole had started this journey alone, broke and hopeless. He had spent his last credit on a stranger. He had stood his ground when running would have been easier. He had chosen to be kind in a universe that rewarded cruelty, and somehow, against all odds, it had worked out. He looked at Vera. She looked back at him. And for the first time in a very long time, neither of them felt alone. "So," Danny said, "are you ready to see what is out there?" Vera smiled, her second smile ever, and nodded. "Yes," she said. "I am ready." The ship jumped to light speed, and the stars became lines of light, and 2 unlikely partners flew off into the unknown together. The galaxy was vast and cold and cruel. But sometimes, just sometimes, a single credit and the courage to stand your ground could change everything. And this was only the beginning.